Testing, one, two, three, testing. Hey, Pretty Girl Club. So today I'm going to be talking about what is soaking up all the attention. And I just wanted to record this really quick because one of the pretty girls actually made a comment that triggered so many memories in me. So I made a video this morning called Self Esteem is Not Built in a Vacuum. And I talked about how self esteem actually starts when it comes to child development. So, your self esteem comes from when you're a child, it comes from your parents actually uplifting you. So, that is technically external validation. But one of the pretty girls commented and she said, my ex friend had a meltdown when I asked a boy for a packet of ketchup and he gave me his last one. She said I needed to be humbled and she hates how males give me stuff and are nice to me. Like simple stuff, like opening the door and letting me skip the line triggers her. I cut her off because she hated my high self esteem. I am certified in standing on business. And she said I felt entitled to people's niceness. I mean, duh, what am I supposed to do? Let people treat me like shit? So when she left this comment, I was literally flooded with so many memories, especially from when I was younger, maybe like a teenager or like kind of in my college days. I've actually had a lot of women react like this to me as well. And have you ever noticed that whenever people make comments like, oh, she's an attention whore, she's soaking up all the attention, or she's male identified, she's male centered, a lot of times women have a hard time naming examples of that. So, for example, I remember one time when I was in college, I actually have multiple stories of me not being invited to Bible studies because I remember one girl in particular, she made that type of comment where I would soak up all the attention or like I was just eating up whenever a guy would compliment me. Okay, so I'm in the middle of editing this right now and she called it an attention hog. That's like the name of what she said. She said I would hog up all of the attention. So first of all, how can you hog attention? They have a scarcity mindset when it comes to attention and validation. It's like, oh, there's only so much attention to go around. And so you're soaking it all up. Like there's a scarcity of attention. By even making that comment, you are admitting that you don't get any attention at all. So you're attention starved. And let me tell you the exact story of what happened one time that made her say that. So we were having a literal Bible study meeting in a dorm one time. And you know how they have like the college dorms where it's an apartment? So she lived in this dorm apartment and there were two bedrooms in the apartment. And there was this one sermon that a lot of us, we were going to watch this sermon. I forgot the name of it, but it was the one where they had like a revival. There were like miracles and stuff. This is back in like the mid 2000s. I can't remember the name of the revival, but it was the one with the guy where they had the gold dust and all that. And then they made a documentary about it. And by the way, for reference, I went to an HBCU. So everybody that was going to come to this Bible study was going to be black or mixed race black men, biracial black, whatever. So I remember I was not very deep into Christianity. I had kind of distanced myself for a little while from Christianity because I grew up very devout. And so as far as the way that I dressed, I did not dress super modestly, but I also didn't dress very worldly either. So if you have a Christian background, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to tell you the exact outfit that I was wearing. So I remember that day, I happened to be wearing a blue crop top and it was a baggy picnic shirt. I don't know how to describe it, but it was a tank top and it was the one where you tie it in the middle because this is like the early to mid 2000s. So it was one of those, but it was kind of longer and it covered my boob area. So there was no cleavage showing whatsoever. And I used to wear skirts. So I actually still didn't even wear mini skirts. I would wear sometimes like a longer skirt or maybe like some sort of pencil skirt length, like that sort of length. And yeah, my clothes would be kind of form fitting because I'm an hourglass. So it's like, if you're an hourglass shape, you kind of want to wear form fitting clothes. Otherwise you're just going to look like a tent. And back then I used to wear my hair natural. So my hair was long. It was in the typical silk press. But, you know, because of the humidity, I would have like a nice poofy lion's mane, but I didn't care because it was my real hair. And this is back when like having long hair, you know, the light skin, long hair combo. This is back when that was like a really big deal, you know, where a lot of guys, by the way, I actually might talk about that because have you ever noticed that why does nobody talk about how a lot of the natural hair movement was male centered? A lot of black women only went natural because they heard so many black men saying how they don't like the weaves and wigs. And so a lot of black women were going natural with their type 4 hair because they thought that like these black men would like their long type 4C hair. And then I feel like for some black women, once they realized that the black men did not like their long 4C hair, they went right back to the wigs and weaves. But anyway, that's another rant. So I remember that's exactly what I was wearing. I did not wear a lot of makeup either because I was also more like pedestalizing natural beauty more so back then. So the reason that this Bible study was apparently a big deal was because the fraternity guys were coming to the Bible study. So I had no idea. I have never pedestalized fraternity black men because I did not grow up in the African American culture. So I didn't know that like black fraternities and sororities were something where people are like, oh, this is cool. I didn't really look up to black men in that way or black women who were a part of these organizations because I had never even heard of them until I was about to go to an HBCU. So it's not like I was out in the suburbs and they were talking about black fraternities and sororities. No, they didn't even talk about white fraternities and sororities, really. So I remember apparently this was a special Bible study night. And so there was this one girl, and she was a pick me, by the way. So she was a fellow MLS girl. She was a light skinned black girl. She had type 4 hair. She just got her hair freshly done in these long braids going all the way down to her butt. And she had like a big butt and everything. So she was like trying to look cute because she had a crush on one of these fraternity guys. And by the way, I knew about this because she went to high school with this fraternity guy. And so this guy, he was like a nerd in high school. He was this light skinned black guy. I guess he was a nerd in high school back when she knew him. And she used to be the popular girl in their high school. But because she had kind of gained weight, so she was still very pretty though. She was like thick. So maybe like somewhere around 200-ish pounds, but she had the flat stomach. She had the typical black girl body type, which is like the ideal kind of hourglass Coke bottle shape. So there was actually nothing wrong with her body shape. She was still like really pretty or whatever, but she had gained weight and stuff. And because she was so religious, she was not popular on the college campus. And when I say she wasn't popular, I don't mean it like people disliked her because people did like her because she was a gospel singer. So anyway, she would like go through all of these things to try to get attention from guys. So I remember she would like perform. She would perform her gospel songs. And isn't that interesting how a Christian woman of God, quote unquote, is over here singing gospel songs trying to get some dick, basically. So you're singing gospel songs so you can attract a black man to like come dick you down after you're done singing the gospel song. So I forgot where I was in the story. But basically, this girl, she had invited these guys over to the Bible study. So they were like the fraternity. They were the Alpha fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha. That's the black and yellow one. I think that's their name, Alphas. Anyway, so rumors started spreading around kind of the friend group like, oh, okay, the Alphas are coming over. By the way, like I said, I had no idea about any of this. And it turns out one of the Alpha guys had known me since I was a freshman. And I didn't know who he was because I had never noticed him because, like I said, I'm not stalking random guys who are in fraternities because I don't care. But it turns out one of the guys, I guess he had noticed me or something and he like liked me. So he told his friend, oh, Exoticals United is friends with Kiana and like she's going to be there. And so then the friend came to the Bible study. And by the way, at this point, I wasn't even like sure if I was going to go to the Bible study because I just didn't really care that much about Bible studies at the time. So it turns out all the alpha guys end up going to this little Bible study thing. And this girl, my friend, let's call her Kiana, she literally went all out because these fraternity guys were coming. So she was like cooking. She had a whole taco night set up. Like she literally spent hours cooking because she was hoping to like impress these guys. And first of all, these are dorm apartments. So these are very small. You have a very small oven, you have a tiny kitchen. Most college students are pretty broke. So she barely even had pots and pans and plates and forks and spoons to serve everyone. But she somehow came up with a way to prepare all of these foods. And so it turns out that all of these alpha guys ended up showing up, but I actually arrived early. So I ended up coming just to visit. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come to like watch this sermon thing. And so I showed up and then there were all girls there. So I wasn't really sure like who was coming yet or anything like that. And I was just wearing my basic little outfit. And so somebody rang the doorbell and they were like, oh, Exoticals United, go answer the door. And I'm like, why do you want me to answer the door? Like, this is random. And she was like, yeah, go answer the door. I have a surprise for you. And so then I answer the door and there's this guy there. And then this guy, he starts blushing. First of all, I didn't even know that light skins could really blush that hard. But anyway, so I answer the door and he's just like, oh, hey, what's up? And I'm like, okay, like I didn't think anything of it. And so as we were watching a sermon that night, we started like kind of having a discussion. You know how after the Bible study thing, you kind of have a discussion about what you learned and all that. So we were talking about it. And this guy, he basically compliments me and he says, like, oh, you're so beautiful or whatever. But he said it in front of the other girls. And so I noticed that after that, my one friend, she started making comments amongst my other friends, like my other Christian friends. She was gossiping to them and saying, oh, Exoticals United, don't bring her around. She's going to soak up all the attention. So literally, I started developing this reputation for being an attention whore and for like being kind of more of like this pick me type of woman. And the reason that they were saying that was because when the guy was complimenting me, I simply smiled and said, thank you. So because I smiled and said thank you after receiving a compliment at a Bible study, apparently I'm soaking up the attention. But that wasn't the only thing that happened. So there was the other Bible study that we had in the same dorm apartments, and this time it was hosted by this other girl who was an extreme pick me. And by the way, this girl that I knew, she was very into like TD Jakes and like, you know, all of the people that I grew up on as well. So TD Jakes, Joel Osteen, all of the Christian preachers, Joyce Meyer, especially the women who were like married and stuff like that. So she was very into that. And she had a Bible study, and it was the same thing where she didn't tell me about the Bible study because she had a crush on the turtle guy. So if you haven't seen that video about the turtle guy, he was the black guy who was like a leader, one of the church leaders. Yeah, so she had a crush on turtle guy. And by the way, the reason that I was even friends with them was because I was actually going through like a depression at the time. So basically, what happened was I had a former friend group, and some of those friends ended up being toxic. And maybe I'll tell that story too. So I was actually transitioning out of hanging out with these toxic girls. And so I was going back to the Christian girls in hopes that I could make some genuine friendships where like nobody's jealous or anything, everybody's kind and sweet. And I was hoping that I could be in an emotionally safe space. And so it was actually very sad and devastating to the point where some dusty ass fraternity guys who literally smelled like onions and weed were able to ruin female friendships. And another reason that I got this reputation amongst the Christian girls on campus as like kind of this pick me attention seeking girl was because so I had this other friend, she happened to be thick as well. So I'm starting to notice a pattern where sometimes these women who are like bad bodied or they think that they're bad bodied, they just tended to not like me. And honestly, I think that's probably still the case to this day. I mean, I don't know. But I noticed I had this one friend, and anytime we would be walking down the street, she would like always try to talk to my leftovers. So basically, anytime I would reject some guys, like they'd be like, hey, baby, what's up? You know, I would say, no, thank you. She would then go and talk to them. So I didn't think anything of it at the time because I was actually very naive. But now that I'm older, she definitely was hanging out with me as a way to draw attention to herself. Have you ever had friends where they're only friends with you because they know that you attract male attention? They just want to talk to all of the guys that you reject. Anytime I would reject this dusty ass guy off the street, she would then be like, oh, what's your name? Like, what's your phone number? She was very straightforward with guys and kind of like approaching that. She was more flirty and stuff than I was at that time. So that's another thing. It's like, okay, so what is soaking up all the attention? Because a lot of the girls that I've been around who have accused me of that, they have done way more extreme things to get attention. Cooking an entire meal for some dusty guys that did not provide any money or anything. Like, why would I do that? I would never do that. I don't even spend 3 hours cooking for myself usually, unless it's like a special occasion. So why would I do all of that just so some guys can come and eat and then blow up the bathroom and then leave? Like, I would never do that. I definitely would not hang out with friends so that I can soak up their leftovers. So these women who say, oh, you're soaking up all the attention, it's like, okay, so because I get compliments, that's basically what you mean. What you really mean is, I'm drawing attention, or you think that I'm drawing the male gaze more than yourself. And so you're mad about it. And so instead of admitting to yourself, she gets more male attention than me and I want male attention because I'm male centered. Instead of admitting that, you want to try to blame it on the woman and say, well, she's just soaking up attention. And it's like, how is it possible for me to soak up attention if there is no attention to be soaked? So by saying that I'm soaking the attention, you're actually admitting that I'm gaining attention. Okay, so if I'm gaining attention, then what are you doing? Okay, so you're saying that you basically don't get attention and you're mad that I do. So do you see how male centered that insult even is? But to be honest, some of the biggest pick me's I've ever met in my life have been women in the church. And a lot of times it's because the men actually were very much like women centered as well. So, like, I've told you guys some of these stories. Actually, I don't think I've told all the stories about guys in the church and how they're very much trying to like wife people up. I've noticed with me personally, a lot of guys, they always try to wife me up really fast. And so I feel like for some women where maybe they really, really want marriage and they really want to marry a certain type of guy, they get jealous and upset about that because they've never experienced that. Maybe they've only experienced being ghosted and all that. So they've never seen the other side of the coin where guys are trying to cling to you and kind of be toxic and possessive with you. But yeah, has anybody else ever noticed this? Like, have you ever been accused of soaking up all the attention, or you're being some sort of attention whore, but then they can't describe how you're being an attention whore? Like, oh, you're an attention whore on social media. Okay, so because I post pictures and they get comments or likes or something, that's being an attention whore. So because I send text messages in the group chat and people respond to me, that's being an attention whore. So because I post on Facebook, I'm an attention whore. Have you ever noticed that a lot of times the examples that people offer of how you are being an attention whore, they're usually just totally normal things that everybody does? They're just mad because when you do it, you're getting a different reaction than them. They're mad because when they post something, they get ignored. They're mad because when they have a meetup or something, nobody cares. Or when it's their birthday or something like that, nobody reacts. But when it's you, suddenly everybody reacts. And so now you must be an attention whore. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.